This is our 1962 project. C1 is what we're doing here is putting our design of our floor and frame from the 57XL. We're going to make this C1 comfortable for somebody my size and larger that can fit an old Corvette. If you got one sitting at home in the garage and you're really not comfortable driving it anymore, something you might want to consider. So we're going to go through the steps of how we cut this floor out and put the new floor in. Our new floor is designed along with the frame as a perimeter frame. So now instead of the main frame rails going down the middle of the seats, it's going around the perimeter of the car, like the second and third generation Corvette. And the floor is also dropped down 2 inches, and the seat is sitting back approximately 4 inches. And the front footwells are forward approximately 2 inches. So you have a ton of room that you've never had in a C1 Corvette. Starting off here on this 62, we're fortunate to start with a very nice car. Instead of taking something that's half molested and no front end on it and quarters and everything, we're starting with a really nice car, which makes the process a lot easier. The better the car you start with, the better the project's going to go for you. So this is set up on our rotisserie that we bought from Roller Hoop. The basic rotisserie is the hoops and the wheels to turn it with, and we've added everything else to install the body to the rotisserie. We've gone into the door jambs, the rear of the car, the front cradle of the radiator, so the bottom of this car is exposed. How you can do this without this, you just have to figure that one out. It's like anything else, think about it. So the beginning of the car, we've masked everything off the bottom of it. The bottom and the inside of it. Showing you the course of where we're going. This is the front firewall mapped out. From this retainer holds the inner fender, we've came over 5 inches, and at the top 3.5 inches. We're leaving that section in the floor in here because with our 57XL floor, you look at this template, and this is the difference that floor is going to come out. So there's 2 more inches of foot room that you're going to have. So when it comes across to here, that's going to stick out and give you a footrest. So when you're having that comfortable cruise down the highway, you can sit your foot up and relax a little bit more. So we're going to follow the factory lines in the firewall, and it's going to come across. We've mapped this whole car out. And the same token here on the bottom. And so if you kind of just shoot through here, we're going to turn this car upside down to make it easier to see. But we're going to end up cutting this reinforcement that's there, leaving part of that reinforcement, and then we'll end up taking that reinforcement, cutting it, and then we'll pull this panel out of here. We've duplicated the panel, changed the angle, because now our frame is going to be out here instead of running down the middle of the car. So the frame's going to be outboard, which gives it more strength on the outboard, helps you in more than one way. Coming across here through the bottom, you'll see the back where we've notched it. We're leaving this part of the original tub in here. So you're going to come up 1.5 inches and you're going to come around and cut that pocket out. Then you're going to follow this body line up and cut it out. We've already cut out the spot for our tubs because we've already started making our tubs. The tubs will be installed after the floor is installed. So that's the rear of it. This right here is the front. And you're going to come straight up along that line because that's where your frame rail is going to go. And you're going to come up 1 inch off of that and cut across. Then you're going to follow that factory line and come right along the bottom here and cut this. All of this stays in the car because that's where you're going to epoxy in the new inner fenders. Everything will be epoxied together. We've made this pretty easy for us to do this with the intentions on doing it on more than one car. Some cases it might make more sense to send your car to us and have you do this conversion for you. Okay, with this roller hoop, makes it pretty simple to do things. We're going to come back in here, we're going to cut this. Both of these spots first. Inside the back of the trunk, we're cutting this whole trunk area out of here because that's all wasted space, valuable space. So now your trunk is going to sit down approximately 6 inches lower than what it does. For you guys that like to golf, it'll give you somewhere to hide your clubs. There'll also be a compartment in here for the guys that want to take a cooler. Compartment's already made. You can probably put about anything in here that you want to put. But now you're going to have some space. So we're going to come in here where this bonding strip of this floor bonds in here. We're going to come away from where it bonds and cut it out. We're going to cut this out along our line where we've marked it. We're going to stay away from that flange where it bonds. We're going to cut that out. Later we're going to come back and remove that because it's easier to remove once the floor is cut out of the way. Okay, so you're going to come around and cut all that out of the way. That's going to be the second cut we're going to make, is the back of the floor. Come around, cut it all out. Be very cautious when you're cutting this out not to let the grinder go through your outer body panels. So you got to think about it as doing it. Don't put the grinder through too far. Just cut it out nice and easy. You'll be fine. So at that point, the back of the car is cut out. This section of the bulkhead, that part of the floor is cut out. Then to make this simple, we're probably going to come in here and cut across this floor right here. That way we can take that rear piece out in one piece. We're not going to try to attempt to save this by any means. It just doesn't make sense. So the rear's cut out. Next thing we're going to do is come in here and cut out this section of the floor and this bulkhead. After that is cut out, our final cut is going to be across this firewall. Back in the rear of the car, the first thing you need to do is unbolt the hinge assemblies for the deck and the trunk. And like any old car, stuff wants to break off, which it's doing. Glob of stuff. You just got to take your time and be patient. So let's start with our cuts, Tom. We've came on the back side and laid out our markings, just following what's on the other side. It's a lot easier to cut it off this side. Loose? Okay. We're still having some rivets on the bottom side we'll drill out once we cut the back of this off. But I'm thinking to make this a little easier for us, since we took those bolts out, we're going to go ahead and take all these rivets out for the metal reinforcements that are inside the floor here. We're going to make our second cut along this panel. We're going to leave that filler, the little bulkhead that's between the deck and the trunk area, we're going to leave that in there, so we're going to cut right along that line. You notice one of the secrets here, how he was cutting that. The rotation of this grinder, how that dust is coming off, he's directing it away from himself. Behind him he has a fan, so it takes the, what some people are paranoid about, the itch, blow the itch away from you, okay? Operate the tool so it's not hitting you if possible. Think about how that wheel's turning and have a fan behind you. Makes it a lot easier to do. But now we got to cut the rear floor out. And so you might look at the size of your cutoff wheel. Some of this you want to use a smaller cutoff wheel to get around the tail light pockets. It's going to take a little time to think about what you're doing with that cutoff wheel so you don't go through the outside panels. So my suggestion to you, Tom, is to start the hardest part first, get it down inside of there. I have to get the high part up here. above your head so you can stand there, then we'll flip the car around. But don't put that grinding wheel through too far because you'll go through that outer panel. We're still not ready to come out. Hang on. Okay. So there's our floor. The rear section of it out of our way. Now we're going to move forward. We'll come back in here and clean this up. As you can see, that's already broken loose anyway. It's easier to take it out in pieces than trying to get it out in the hole. So I'm going to come in here and get rid of some rivets along the bottom of this floor. That's riveted all the way along there, Tom. It's got another shitload of rivets.
Oh crap, this is all riveted. Then we just grind the head of those off and pop it.
Yeah, I was trying not to do it the easy way. Oh, we gotta cut that, Tom. Here, let me see, cut off wheel. 5-inch one. Okay, so these two lower floor reinforcements, we're gonna cut them right here where we're gonna do the rest of our cuts and just remove the pockets. So that piece of reinforcement's out of our way. We're going to end up cutting our floor right along here is where our floor is going to get cut out. Okay, so now we're into our little pocket here. And I want to break this loose from the body without damaging the body. Wow. Okay, so that's all broke loose now. Now our mission is to get the rest of the panel off of there. Whenever you're chiseling panels off, it's good to have a couple chisels. Get one started, keeps the pressure, and you get the next one going. That was where one of our rivets was still partially in there. I wonder what's been living in there all that time, huh? That metal panel we're going to get rid of because we're going to go back in there with fiberglass panels. You can see this one's partially rotted out. Over the years, back when these cars were driven all the time because that's all they had. And so now we're going to reverse this over and do the same thing on the other side.